Sometimes, true stories from history can read like fiction novels of unbelievable events. In some cases, these incidents occur due to strange beliefs, superstitions, or a misconception of what we now consider to be normal occurrences. Some weird historical moments are, however, the result of inexplicable events that defied belief at the time, and they remain unexplained mysteries in the modern era. Number 5. Julius Caesar features in many of history's true stories, but not everyone knows that he was captured by Sicilian pirates when he was 25 years old. This strange event happened in 75 BCE, while Caesar was sailing the sea. This area at the time was infested with pirates who made a living from plundering any vulnerable ships that crossed their paths. On this occasion, however, the pirates had no idea that their kidnapped victim was, in fact, one of the most powerful men in the world, and they demanded a ransom of 20 talents of silver, about 620 kilograms. When Caesar learned of the amount, he laughed at them and demanded that they raise the ransom to 50 talents, or about 1,150 kilograms of silver. The pirates agreed, and Caesar sent a few of his men to collect the ransom. While they were away, he refused to act the way a normal kidnapping victim would, and instead treated the pirates as if they were his subordinates. He ordered that they were to stay silent while he slept, recited poetry to them that he'd written, and participated whenever they exercised or played games. Over time, the pirates grew to like him, and he was eventually allowed to move around their island and ships freely. But the fact remained that Caesar was their prisoner, and he didn't take kindly to that fact, telling them on several occasions that when his ransom was paid, he would hunt them down and have all of their lives ended. The pirates took this as a joke, but 38 days later, the ransom had been collected and delivered, and Caesar was released, giving him the chance to raise a small fleet and sail back to the pirates' island, where they still remained. He ordered that they all be taken prisoner and collected the 50 talents of silver that had been paid for his release, as well as all of their belongings. He then delivered the pirates to prison, after which he petitioned with Marcus Junius to have the pirates executed. Junius disagreed, as he wanted them to be sold off as slaves in order to make a hefty profit. Caesar decided to take matters into his own hands, and every last one of his captors lost their lives. Number 4. Charles VI ruled as the King of France from the 16th of September 1380 to the 21st of October 1422. He was affectionately known as Charles the Beloved, but towards the end of his reign he became known as Charles the Mad, and with good reason. 12 years after being crowned, the first signs of his mental issues started to show up when he prepared a military expedition to Brittany, where a man named Pierre de Cronne was hiding out after attempting to assassinate Charles's advisor and close friend, Olivier de Clisson. As they departed, it was noted that his speech seemed disconnected, and that he seemed to be in a fever to begin the campaign. He grew impatient with the expedition's slow progress through a forest near Le Mans, and when a man approached the company, telling them that Charles had been betrayed and to turn back, he was beaten and ignored. But when one of the king's pages accidentally dropped his lance, causing it to clang against another soldier's helmet, it startled Charles, who immediately ordered his men to attack the enemies that lay in wait for him, though there were none. He violently started swinging his sword and attacking his own men, and was only subdued when he was held to the ground, after which he fell into a short-lived coma. In 1393, Charles's wife came to visit him, and he ordered his servants to take her away so that he could be left in peace, as he didn't recognize her and had seemingly forgotten not only his own name, but also that he was the king. During one episode in 1395 and 96, he believed himself to be Saint George and was once again unable to recognize his wife as well as his children. And in 1405, he refused to bathe or change his clothes for months at a time. The Pope at the time would write that Charles believed himself to be made of glass and had iron rods sewn into his clothes to keep him from shattering in case he accidentally bumped into another person. Number 3. Etienne Botano cemented his name in history when, in 1770, he claimed that he had the ability to predict the arrival of ships 2 to 4 days before they were visible, an ability that, if proven true, would serve as an invaluable tool to anyone who was wary of an invasion. Botano claimed that he was able to observe atmospheric phenomena that enabled him to distinguish visible signs of approaching ships, and that he was so confident in his ability that he started placing bets that he won more often than not. Over the next few years, he perfected his technique, and in 1782, he informed Francis de Souillac, the Governor-General of the islands of Mauritius and Bourbon, that a fleet of 11 ships was heading their way. De Souillac believed that a British fleet was set to invade, and he launched a counterattack, but Botano calmly informed him that the ships had changed course and were now sailing away from Mauritius. Shortly after, de Souillac's ship returned and confirmed Botano's claims, explaining that the fleet had indeed been heading towards them but had sailed away in the exact direction that Botano predicted. For 4 years, between 1778 and 1782, Botano made up to 575 correct predictions for de Souillac, with some ships as far as 4 days away. His talent, which he called noscopy, baffled his fellow sailors who were unable to spot the approaching vessels, even with the use of telescopes. In 1780, he offered his services to the Minister of Marine Affairs in France, who was skeptical of his predictions. The minister wrote to de Souillac and asked him to keep a record of Botano's predictions for the following 2 years. This prompted de Souillac to reply with a detailed report in which he confirmed that his talents were indeed real. Botano was offered large sums of money to disclose his secret to the governor, but he refused the offer, believing that his talents were worth a lot more. He eventually moved to India, where he passed away in 1802, taking the secret of his talent with him, and to this day, no one understands how he was able to make such accurate predictions. Number 2. On the 11th of October, 1973, Charles Hickson and Calvin Parker decided to go fishing on the west bank of the Mississippi River, a decision that would see them included in one of the weirdest history stories ever. At one point, both men heard a piercing sound coming from above them, and when they looked up, they saw a large UFO hovering above them. They described the oval object as roughly 30 to 40 feet across and 8 to 10 feet high, and said that they had both become paralyzed, though they were still aware of their surroundings. They were then taken aboard the craft by 3 creatures with slit mouths and crab-like pincers, and were brought to an examination room. They were held on board for around half an hour, during which time they say they were examined with oblong instruments and were eventually set free, unharmed. Following the incident, the 2 men contacted the Jackson County Sheriff's Office and were given lie detector tests, which they both passed. They were also questioned under hypnosis, but their accounts never wavered. Hickson would go on to give interviews about the incident, and made a TV appearance on the game show To Tell the Truth. In 1974, he claimed that he'd been having more encounters with extraterrestrial beings, and he would go on to write a book entitled UFO Contact at Pascagoula. More than 45 years after the terrifying ordeal, a woman called Maria Blair came forward and revealed that the 2 men were indeed telling the truth, as she had witnessed the abduction take place. She claims that she was on the shore, waiting for her husband's boat to leave as he was working offshore. She then saw a blue light in the sky hovering over the area that Hickson and Parker were fishing, but she thought it was a helicopter or a plane. She describes the light as hovering in the area for about 30 minutes before it flew out of sight. She also claims to have heard a splashing sound, as if something had been thrown into the water, and then saw what looked like a person in the water. She says she never spoke about the incident since her husband wanted her to keep quiet. Number 1. The Greenbrier Ghost is part of creepy history dating back to 1897 in the neighborhood of Greenbrier County, West Virginia. In January of that year, a young boy entered the house of Elva Zona Heister after being told by Elva's husband, Erasmus Shue, to ask her if she needed anything from the market before he returned home. But he made a shocking discovery. Elva was lying on the floor, motionless, and at first the boy thought she was asleep. But when he called out to her, she didn't move, and he ran to tell his mother what he had found. His mother contacted the local doctor, but it took him over an hour to make his way to the house, by which time Elva's husband had returned home. He found her deceased on the floor, and he had taken her upstairs where he had washed her and dressed her in a high-necked dress for her funeral. The doctor examined the body, but every time he neared the woman's head and neck, Shue would respond violently while crying inconsolably. The doctor would eventually determine that she had passed away from everlasting faint, but later changed his opinion to complications from pregnancy. Shue was reported acting out of character at Elva's funeral, wrapping her head and neck in a scarf that didn't match her dress, but he insisted that it was her favorite. He also placed pillows around her head, claiming that she would rest more comfortably. But a month later, Elva's mother, Mary Jane Heister, claimed that Elva's spirit was visiting her in her dreams at night and told her that she'd been killed by Shue after he returned from work and became upset that she hadn't cooked any meat for dinner. She spoke to a prosecutor, John Alfred Preston, who was skeptical at first, but when he learned about Shue's strange behavior from the doctor, he decided to reopen the case. After it was found via an autopsy that foul play was indeed involved, the case went to trial, with Mary Jane serving as the prosecution's main witness. During cross-examination, she was asked about her ghostly dreams, and she managed to convince the jury that she was being truthful. It took them just over an hour to reach a guilty verdict, and Shue was sentenced to life in prison. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But I've been Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.